thing, and we always do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And all we're worried about is the transition to that, but it's a.
Beers Diablo.
I think forgetting the kids got to go first. It's just like
Okay, well,
it just sets the tone for the rest of any new listener would come on. It's like, what are these guys about?
that's true. I'm very interested in how that transition happens, though.
So speaking of
And
not
speaking of-
drinking, like,
Speaking of Marco Polo, where's my kid?
oh, that is good. Okay, well, there we go. We just have it. Like,
All right, there we
you
go.
just nailed it
All
off
right,
the bat.
Scrap it. All right,
Speaking of Marco Polo, where's my kid?
Marco.
Well, I was at a loss on that.
There's no polo.
Fateful Friday. All the year, like perfect record. The whole year can. It was so like, oh, so it was just stunning. Man,
Love
yeah.
it.
It's just hard to like. Let's hope it's taken in the right context. But if I'm not,
We'll
if I'm not
find
back,
out.
if I'm not back for the next episode, it's just like, well,
It'll just be a cardboard cutout of you.
yeah. What do you mean the ratings tripled? Damn it! Cardboard Trevor's through the roof. Let's go. Oh, all right, let's get the onesie twosies.
Onesie twosies.
Oh man, I don't think we've ever done onesie twosies live on air
I
before.
don't think so. Everyone's in for a treat.
a special audio sync behind the scene mix of how we make sure our two audio tracks line up.
Listen up, Bill. This is how it's done.
Oh man, if we were half as good at Bill as editing, this would be a whole different show.
Yeah,
I'm so envious of the way he puts it in. I like his this setup too.
it
Not
works.
not these dads.
No, these dads wing it.
Yeah. All right, let's hit it. Ready?
Yep.
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7.
8.
I do like the thought that someone joins us on Twitch and like it's like, hey, let's see what these guys are about. 1.
Well,
It's
we're dealing with kids counting up to 10. It's a whole thing.
like, oh, I guess it's just another child's education YouTube's channel. Fine. 1.
Sensation. Yeah, get in on the ground floor. This is going to take off. Baby Shark.
Oh Lord, why'd you have to bring that up? I'm gonna be thinking about that now for a while. Do, 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 do.
I'm glad I missed that. Like,
Yeah,
that was
it's-
not part of my life. So,
Them, Paw Patrol, Blippi. Oh,
Paw
man.
Patrol was it, and Bubble Guppies.
Bubble Guppies are, man, I tell you, I looked longingly at Bubble Guppies.
Yeah.
The songs, the production value, there's a couple like parent jokes kind of like snuck in here from time to time. So why
Yeah.
can't I watch this? I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this kid and his slave dogs save the most inept town I've ever seen. This mayor should be thrown out. This
Yeah.
like, I don't know how this guy has a boat license. Like this whole town is just a disaster.
It's just falling apart, and you rely on these dogs.
Run by a kid. You rely on a kid and his dogs.
That's what happens.
God, I hate that show. Okay, there's a subreddit where it's, I think it's Daniel Tiger conspiracies.
Really? You've been in this, obviously.
Oh, man,
you've
so-
looked okay, all right.
The only thing Daniel Tiger conspiracies is it's just dads throwing out the wildest theories about all of the kid shows. So if they notice something like that, like they just like go off on it. It's just this release for dads where it's just like, and another thing about Miss Frizzle. How does this even? Does she even get a permission slip? What is this?
Where are those field trip forms? I didn't sign anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's anyways. As a nice little release, that is a fantastic subreddit to check out.
Nice.
All right, but we are propagated to all the networks. Let's get this recording underway because we are live. The adult beverages are poured. The kids are asleep. Welcome to New Dad Gaming, a show about fatherhood, gaming, and new fathers figuring out their gaming lives. My name is Trevor, and I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old.
All right, the summer of beers continues. We've been continuing to look for recommendations from other gaming dads. Continue to send them in. We've got a couple. We're trying our best. I will say, at least where I'm located, Jeff, is probably the same for you. we are just awash in like local craft beer. So
Yeah.
my local stores do not have a lot coming from our friends south of the border. But just the same, keep sending the recommendations. We'll try to find anything and everything to try and get a representation from other beers, recommendations. What are you drinking? What are you liking? Send it to our way at New Dad Gaming on Twitter and newdadgaming.com. For myself, it was a beer choice based purely on the can.
Oh, that's a good way to do it.
It's a Pilsner. I don't generally like Pilsner, but this can looks so cool. I just had to do it. So it is called a Marco Polo. It's from Indie Ale House. It's their Marco Polo Italian style Pilsner. Good news, turned out to be quite tasty. Very good. Like nothing absolutely mind-blowing about it, but very competent, very delicious, kind of like the flavors to it. And the can is just gorgeous. Like this is so cool looking. Black and gold. Marco Polo's on the one side of the can. It says Marco. And then you turn, and way on the other side is Polo. Marco Polo, love it. Genius.
Didn't
But
have to find the taste either.
just reels me in. What can I tell you? So Marco Polo Pilsner, really enjoying it, and I'm a sucker for good design. Judging books by their cover. Jeff, what are you drinking this week?
Well, we don't sell each other on just pre-orders on this show. We sell each other on the beers that we've chosen.
Yes, sir.
So I am going on your recommendation, Sober Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
So it is actually the IPA. I think you had the red ale, I think
Mm-hmm.
we said, right? So at Montreal, Quebec, this is a nice non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
I will give you this. This is a great one to pick up if you're looking, again, for non-alcoholic. Has a great taste. Not like, not assaulting my taste buds by any means. It's just nice, crisp, clean. I rather enjoy this one. So thank you for this recommendation. Like this is another good one. Never would have picked this up.
Yeah, that one was particularly exciting. It was just available in the grocery store, fairly nicely priced, and just you would not know. You could have that in a lineup of other beers. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And that was really exciting. And I particularly like the red ale, the Irish ale that they have. But it was a bit of a shock to me. It's like, wow, like I knew alcoholic beer had come a ways, but to have something like this that is more mass produced and available, relatively cheap, like excellent. So cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got you in there. All right, hey, Gaming Dads, like I said, toss us your recommendations. Anything else, any beers you'd like us to try to find and recommend to other Gaming Dads on the show. So I forgot my kid this week.
Wow, okay, that's... Hold on.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. There's a lot.
Okay, so my kid is now officially off at last week. I forgot to pick him up at the school bus. I just completely spaced. I didn't even space. I remembered that I had to pick him up. I knew that I had to pick him up.
Okay.
And I was looking at the time. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do this one other thing before I pick him up. And, I'll be ready to pick him up at 3:30. Cool. Pickup time's 2:30, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, early dismissal, right? Is it?
No. That's every day.
Oh,
And
this
I
is
pick-
just...
and
You
I
just
pick-
picked
I-
3:30?
I pick them up every day. I've successfully picked them up every day at that same time. But then on let's call it Wednesday, it's like, yeah, I'll get them at 3:30. Not a problem.
Uh-huh.
Just random date. And the next thing I know is I'm interrupted from whatever like task I was doing with just like I was like, oh, what is that? A salesman? And then I hear my kid's voice. And just like and the color drains, the orchestral music starts in the background. I'm like, oh God, what have I done? I had just completely blown it. Completely forgot. Friend of my younger son, same bus stop. We go and chat with him every single day. The bus driver lets them off the bus and they're just like, so I guess he's just not here? You're going to take him? The other dad's like, yeah, I will.
Oh, no.
And then he walked them all over. We're friends with the family, so it was a great catchback. But just again, like hearing my son knock on the door and scream, and they're laughing their heads off. They think
Of course, yeah.
this is the greatest day in the world. Good old dad completely blew it. And there's the other father, no heart, no shame. We were just laughing our heads off. It was great, but
Now, did the dad do you a solid, though? He'd be like, yeah, so the joke worked out. We got him. Right? Like, totally cover.
nailed him. Oh no, everybody's laughing. My kids loved it. They were just screaming. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Like I said, the dad did. My wife was like just stunned, and I too. I'm just telling you, I don't. Why 3:30? Why on earth this one day?
How long has it been? Like you've done this probably
Months.
200 times.
Months, man,
Okay.
months.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
him on the bus.
3:30, just out of the sky. You pull this number.
It doesn't matter how long you're a dad, guys. It doesn't matter how good you're at it. Eventually, you're gonna goof up, and there was that. I had a big one to. What a way to end off the year.
I'm glad they had a laugh over it though. That was
Yeah,
fun.
it worked out perfectly. Like it could not have worked out better. And like knowing your neighbors, living in a good neighborhood, like it has its advantages. Especially knowing like other dads and everything. Or getting friendly with other people around your kids certainly pays dividends. But oof, pour one out for the old forgetful dad here. That was just horrendous.
Kevin.
Yeah. So, can't believe I've made my family disappear. Now, transitioning to a good gaming dad, I wanted to
Okay.
give an update. We were sent an update from gaming dad Luke. Thanks so much for writing in. You listeners of the show might remember last week where he had written in with a quandary around 3 kids and himself all playing games, the one Xbox system, and now it's time for another. What do they do? Ultimately, we landed on a few things. Nintendo seemed like kind of an expensive option to kind of jump into. It doesn't really solve the numbers game. We'd suggested maybe Android tablets, which would also help with a road trip. But ultimately, since he's already into the Xbox realm, another Xbox might just help satiate it. So you get the 2 of them and potentially an upgrade. So he writes in, fairly long response, but I did really like the story, so I want to get into it. And actually brings up a good point we're going to talk about next with guns and games. But I repeat, just listen and wow, thank you so much for the in-depth conversation and response. Going to re-listen with my wife this evening and then we'll lay out the options. I really thinking extra Xbox is the best move. The thought of diving into the Nintendo world without any background in it would be a pretty expensive adventure. Steam Deck doesn't sound kid-friendly. Absolutely dead on there.
Yeah.
And I don't have a backlog to dive into. I think that's probably even the better point is that it's not just that the hardware you can't hand a Steam Deck to
Yeah.
a 7-year-old. It's that if you don't have all these Steam games, you're going to be kind of off. So, very astute point there. Seems like we wouldn't be able to get away with just getting a tablet. I don't know if we'll suddenly want 3 on a road trip. Only having 1 would cause problems. Jeff is exactly right on what games the boys play. You had pegged it perfectly. The 5 and 7-year-olds bounce around Minecraft, Roblox, Fall Guys, but the 9-year-old actually likes Game Pass games for a week or 2 anyways. I remember him diving hard into Super Lucky Tales, excellent game, Tunic, Vampire Survivors, also excellent,
Oh yeah.
and now it seems like Minecraft Legends and Cassette Beasts. We haven't touched Fortnite, which brings up another conversation, guns and games. When he started watching screens playing games, we kind of always just said no guns and games. And he's never really asked to play Fortnite, but he's old enough to get into it now. His friends mostly play Minecraft, from what we hear, so it's really never come up. At that age, I was probably playing Duke Nukem and Wolfenstein, and I think I turned out okay. Not Call of Duty or any first-person shooter myself, so there's not much for guns and games. I'll download Fortnite and introduce him this weekend when the younger 2 are in bed and busy and let you know the initial reaction. That will be interesting. A child's first reaction to Fortnite. Very cool. Thanks so much for the suggestions and the constant and talking through the console systems. One last thing. Thank you for the Pokemon Go suggestion a few pods ago. I downloaded it on my phone and now it's been nice for walks and bike rides. We map out what gyms we're going to hit and bike or walk there. My rule is the phone stays in the pocket until we're at the gyms. So this has actually been great for conversation bonding time without them realizing it. They love catching Pokemon. They have cards and are finding it cool. Let's see. The Pokemon they have cards of. Oh, they love catching Pokemon they have cards of or finding cool new ones they've never seen. It's rekindling a love for Pokemon that seemed to finally be tailing off in our house, but that's great. Pokemon library books and drawings all over the place again. Thanks for the podcast and looking forward to old man gaming in the future. Okay, final update. We settled on getting a new Xbox Series X. We're even talking an upgrade.
Okay,
And for downstairs and moving the Series S upstairs. What a win. Boys are all very excited about this plan for now. Doubt that that'll last when they realize how much bigger the basement TV is. Buying the Series X next weekend on a trip to Calgary, so no PST in Alberta, so it should be a bit of a savings. So hopping over to a place that doesn't have the sales tax. Man, fantastic, top to
That worked
bottom.
out. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. So the extra Xbox, kids are all excited about it. The Nintendo wasn't going to work, tablets wasn't work. Absolutely going. The Pokemon Go part too is I love the twist on it. So we had talked about a number of podcasts ago. My family had rediscovered Pokemon Go. Kids loved walking around and haha, surprise, you're doing exercise outdoors. Like, secret dad win. The extra twist he added here where it's like we can do this, but we're going to keep the phone in the pocket. So we're not going to be
Right.
constantly staring at it, and we're going to just walk to this location to battle the gym. That's a really nice twist, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Because again, you're going to be talking about the Pokemon all the way up to that point, and you're not glued to the screen, trying to like meander around it to find the other Pokemon. So I think that is a great twist, like you said, on how to kind of like get them away from the screen, but allow it as well. And then they don't know any different. They're having a great time. It sounds like. So yeah, no, that's a good added effort there.
Excellent gaming dad tip. Thanks so much, Luke. Anybody else listening? Do you have a gaming story? Do you have a gaming dad quandary? Do you have anything else you'd like to mention? Would love to hear from you. Love to shout it on the show. Get the collective gaming dad wisdom. Reach out to us at New Dad Gaming on Twitter or newdadgaming.com. So that actually does segue in. He had mentioned guns and games. That one's interesting. We've touched on it in the past around introducing that type of violence. And I think violence is probably the key word because much like a Looney Tunes to a R-rated film, there is a certain intent or a degree of violence that I think almost becomes manageable in a sense. Like, Bugs Bunny slaps Daffy with a frying pan.
Yeah.
It's not great. I don't want you to do that to your sibling, but it's that's on a different level than Die Hard. Like replaying on the TV,
A little
right?
bit, yeah.
All right,
Exactly.
so I don't know where you and your household has fallen on guns and violence and games and how that's kind of come about for you guys.
Yeah, like we had a conversation a few years ago, I guess when my kids were a little bit younger, and kind of laid down the rules like you explained. Like there's some gun violence that is a little bit more cartoony, and if the games aren't super gory violent with ragdoll physics of people being shot and stuff. It was more about you have to be just present in your parenting. So Fortnite they tried out, they didn't like it. Any other guns has been Roblox and
Yeah.
I think some mods to Minecraft, and that's about it. They have no appetite for anything else, so we kind of like left that field a little bit open, knowing that we could be asked about Call of Duty, we could be asked about these other, like, I think a lot of their friends play even Tom Clancy's what's it, Siege, Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, wow.
And that is
Okay.
like super violent.
Yeah.
But they have no appetite for it. So the circle of friends they've built is actually on Minecraft and Roblox. So we're not really into super violent yet, but we've made those boundaries and like come to us. That's all. Like we want to assess at that time. So, but how about yourself? Like,
Yeah.
you could be right in the thick of it. So
Well, so my guys are the problem is I think largely the influence from YouTube.
definitely, yeah.
Before we nip that in the bud, because like there's nothing that we bring into the house that would have that level of it. We don't watch those films. I don't download games and play that type of stuff with them. And not a knock on it. I just mean like it's not something I've presented to my kids and let them to play. The I'll say with mine is that I almost feel that I think my son seems to like to irk us a bit. Seems to like to twist the knife a little bit, kind of get us riled up a little bit. Because obviously it's like, hey, we turned off YouTube because you're watching this because it's violence and it's not good stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now he has come to start saying things like, oh, but like I love violence. Like violence is great. You're like, okay. Like I don't think he's not properly equating it. And where it comes out, unfortunately, is there's one time we were going through a fair. This is like a apropos of nothing. I'll swing it back around, I promise. But we're going through a fair, and this one, there was a leather dealer there. So he had a bunch of bags, he had a bunch of like vests and things like that. And the one thing he had was like, it's either cuffs or it was like a collar for a dog. Leather collar had like big spikes.
Yep.
Like this little cartoonish type thing, right? So big silver spikes on a black thing. My kid's like, oh, could I get that? How much does that cost? I want to wear it on my wrist. And he's like, why would you want to do that? And my son says, because I love violence. Just like, What is? What
Yeah.
the police officers walking in the distance. I'm like, oh hey sir, how you doing?
Yeah, that's
So
they pull from anywhere though. Like, is he
yeah,
playing Final Fight at home? I don't know. Double Dragon?
he did play Final. We did Final Fight 4. He was playing that one
Oh, okay.
actually.
Well,
So, but that was like again like that was kind of like just this cartoony,
yeah.
pixelated like beat 'em up. So I didn't see much issue. So for him, I would think if I were to let him, I believe he'd play GTA 5
Oh, yeah. If you let it, and it would just happen.
because he had a lot of the YouTube trash we were like getting him off of. Like we'd stop it anytime we catch it, but like he would eventually veer into guys doing silly, rambunctious stuff on GTA 5. So they go from, and some of it seems relatively harmless because the one is like, oh look, this is a Spider-Man and a Hulk mod, and they're just running around. And the next one is they're driving Lamborghinis up in the sky. Like the mod scene within GTA 5 is ridiculous, but like video, and then next thing you know, it's definitely like just the full gun gore nonsense that goes on with that. So, it's been those conversations too, where it's just like there's a degree of violence, like there's this blood and this like hurting of people and this like purposeful or non-purposeful hurting of other people. That's just not what we want you guys to play. Like this is like we're trying to have some fun, like, we're trying to enjoy ourselves, but we can't veer into this until you're older. And of course, they're asking me like, at what age. I think I throw out 16, like not really thinking about it much. How old do I have to be? Like 16. Like double your actual age.
You just double the age. You're like, I don't even want to think about it right now. In the future.
Yeah, 8+ years Trevor will deal with that situation. Current day Trevor is just gonna punt it off to the future. So it's coming. I mean, like eventually, what the ultimate thing was going to happen is one of his friends will play it, will get Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Guarantee it. That's how every time this works. One of his friends will be allowed to play Call of Duty much too early. It's like, but Jonathan plays it. Or even worse is when he goes to Jonathan's house and they all just play Call of Duty without us knowing about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Tale
you
as
do
old
that
as
as a
time.
kid?
Yeah, I was gonna say just like we did.
Exactly.
So, tale as old as time. But so the best we could do, I think, is try to preface it and have them understand the context of violence in these games, like what it kind of means, and like I don't. And like the worst version of parenting, it's almost like you'd show them actual real world gun violence just to let them see how horrific and sad it is, as
Like
opposed
Clockwork Orange, you just like pull open their eyelids and just watch this.
I'm a good dad.
Yeah.
I forget my kid at school on the bus and I show him violent things to help learn them. No, but the conversation is going to come up. It's going to be a nuanced one around trying to, you're not quite old enough for it yet because you can't particularly contextualize it as to what this thing is. You don't need to be exposed to it. And when you do start to play it, you have to understand like it's violence in and of itself isn't good. Like it's a bad thing. This is not exemplary behavior. And, it's to be kind of quarantined into this particular mode.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't want to romanticize it, right? I think that's the point. And they need to know that kind of video game violence is very different from real violence, and real violence affects and impacts people, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going around saying things out in public, actually my 12-year-old talking on his Discord, they joke about stuff all the time, and that actually worked its way into schoolwork, right? So that's when we had a conversation, be like, okay, all the stuff that you may not play these types of games with the violence, but you will talk about it in your friends groups. And then once it gets into school, that's a whole different context. And you have to know that that stuff does happen. It's very scary. It's very triggering. And you need to, step back from that. And that's what all this means. And you have those conversations, right? So as long as you're kind of monitoring, there is, I think like you said, like there's no real age number to it, but there is just like how you feel about your kid to handle it and actually understand what it means. And you can't go around your friends' houses and say all this stuff, right? When they're not ready. And then that's a whole other issue that crops up.
God, like I don't want to be too much of a hypocrite either. Like there's degrees of it. So like the violence we played, I'm trying to think about when I played Doom.
And when I played Doom young.
And when I played Duke Nukem.
Yep.
Duke Nukem, which is particularly bad comparatively.
Well, yeah. Well, and the nudity and everything. But.
Exactly, the definite nude mods. And what I'm wondering about, so I don't want to be on this like high horse and preaching like, oh, no violence for you, because it's. But at what point is it different? do you think how much different is it? Because fine, the graphics were crude, but the context was still there. Like it was still objectification, violence, like blood, gore, death. Like what? Like would you? Is it different now because of the fidelity that we're dealing with?
I'm not even so certain it's about that. It's more like we're armed with that knowledge. So our parents were not in a space to even like I don't even think they knew what I was playing, right? They're like, "Oh, he's playing video games. It's the Mario." Like I don't know why they talk like an old Italian.
Is that Sonic feller?
Yeah, so I think now that we're armed with the knowledge and know that maybe we did go through some trauma playing those games. I know Duke Nukem like that was a thing in high school. We snuck that in classrooms.
Installing it on school computers.
Yeah, and so like I think if they want to play something, like you're not going to be able to stop it in today's age. It's more about having that conversation and that knowledge around it. But I think we do a good job. I would pat ourselves on the back that
wow, aren't you so wonderful, Jeff?
at least for having that conversation instead of just like heads in the sand, which I think my parents did and maybe a lot of other parents did, because they just didn't understand what you were doing. So in those games you were interacting with things, and it was pixels and kind of crude models, but to me back then it was real. Like that was, oh my god, look at these graphics.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that has changed. It's definitely become more realistic to us, but I don't know. And then there's VR. And my 12-year-old has friends with VR, and like there's stuff for that. There's a lot of stuff. Man, now you've got me worried about that. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think
the problem with VR is it's not just that you press a button and then a sword goes. It's like you are taking your hand, which is a katana,
and doing the action. Absolutely, yeah, that is much more visceral and hands-on.
You may want to check in on that there, bud.
Jeez.
Yeah, tricky. So that is a good context to remind us. It's in many ways it's the same, because it's just the exposure to a subset of content that perhaps you're not ready to take on. The difference being is much like drugs were to the parents of the 60s as opposed to the 80s. It's like, I remember those.
Yeah.
Now so too is video games, where it's like, I'm going to play this game, and we can say like, wait a minute, like what's the rating? Like what's in this whole, wait, I've seen this YouTube video. No, sir, not this game.
It's almost like, GTA 5 is that old that like we played it, and now this generation is asking for it. You're like, man, they have not progressed, and I know exactly what's in that game.
Yeah. I don't think they can really slip one past us as far.
I don't think so.
You know what I mean? Like, so, well, now that I've said it, I'm on the record of saying it, so that's going to totally come back to bite me. It will be difficult, given our context, for them to slip one by us for something age appropriate. But
I think our kids are really smart, and they'll find a way if they want. It's like, I know my kids will.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so Trevor, plus 8 years. Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
if Trevor in 4 years doesn't give up, just give in. It's like, whatever, just have it. I'm tired. I forgot you in school. Just don't tell your mom.
Yeah, it's summertime. Just do whatever.
Just do what you like. So wanted to recount. So gaming dads may have recalled that I had, at the behest and pressure from friends, pre-purchased. Not that it was like that hard to convince me.
Like, did they twist your arm? Buy now.
It's probably just like a light suggestion. I'm like, okay, I guess I have to. I had pre-purchased Diablo 4. I had gone into it. Have really enjoyed this game. Like, it is fantastic. A lot of great gaming dad pluses. A lot of ways that it becomes very easy to play. Easy to dip in and dip out. Lots of little side quests. You can just reset your stats for next to nothing, so you're not locked into something if you've kind of made a mistake. Lots of deer fun. So for the first time, and I'm sure like other gaming dads have experienced this type of thing, of getting together with friends who have less kid encumberment, let's say. Vis-a-vis, they don't have kids.
They don't have kids. Yeah,
they're just living their lives.
Yeah.
So those are the friends that have convinced me to do this, and I was over there the one night. We just had everything kind of like the stars aligned, and it's like, all right, let's have a match. Like, let's play some Diablo 4. And they come to look at my account, and it's just like Oh God. Oh God, have you even played? Like you're so weak. What is this? So I was at like level 20. I had not beat the game yet.
Right.
Had still not done a to this date. I still have not done a full playthrough.
Were you
Like
proud of the level 20 though? Like, let's put this in perspective. Like,
no,
I'm level 20. Like,
I knew what it was. It's
oh,
like
okay, all
I
right.
knew what was up. But these guys were like level 50, like level 60. They had legendaries. They'd beaten the game a few times through. Like it was just like they come in like, oh, you haven't beaten the game yet. Coo. Like,
This is when you realize who your true friends are. They're like, yeah, so we're gonna call it.
if you could just leave, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Look at the time. No. So that's to exactly the point. That's because they are true friends. So they said, not a problem, man. Like we'll just hop into your game. We'll help you get through some of the story. Like let's go. And they did just that. They didn't complain. Didn't worry about it. We are laughing, having a good time. They're letting me watch cutscenes.
Oh, wow. Okay. You were
And
like the player too. You were
yeah,
like, hand him the controller that's not connected.
what's good is that they didn't have to watch the cutscenes with me. They could blast through. But it's like, yeah, no, watch the cutscene. This is your first time. They'll be great. So they were total princes about the entire thing. And we blasted through like a big chunk of the story that I hadn't gotten through yet. They were actually like a huge help. What's interesting is that everything, and again, this is one of those pluses of this game, is they will level set for everybody who's in. So for me, I'm fighting level, let's say 20 bosses. For
Yeah.
them, they're fighting level 60 bosses. But we're on the same, we're fighting the same boss though, right? Like, so the health is, but they've just matched everybody. So the experience for everybody is the exact same.
Okay.
So like it's kind of like as if I'm contributing at level 60 or as if they're contributing level 20, whatever. Like so it in so doing it means that they can hop in, they can have a rewarding experience, they can even get some decent loot necessarily so that they are rewarded for coming back and shepherd me through these first times. So thankfully like I said like good friends, like good guys and they like were patient with me the fact that but I was so weak and so underleveled. Like it was just embarrassing. Where it's
Yeah.
like it's like you haven't even beat the game yet, like not even once. It's like guys, I wake up at 6
Yeah.
to put my kids to bed, like to get my kids to school. I pick them up most of the
Sometimes.
time at 2:30. 2:30.
Yeah.
And then I work, and then we put them to sleep, and I'm exhausted. Like it's yeah, man. Like I'll maybe have half an hour to an hour a night if I'm lucky. Most often
Yeah.
not. So I don't have you dipped into gaming with old gaming buddies or with friends who don't have kids and have a certain perspective on like where you are in your leveling.
I have dipped into games with friends that have older kids. So not with friends that have no kids. I think that I don't even know if that exists in our friend circle, to be honest, which is kind of sad, right? But yeah, with older kids, so that they do have more gaming time because they can play this in front of their kids, right? Or their kid is up doing their own thing and staying up to 1 a.m. or whatever, so they can blast through a ton of stuff and you go over there and you're like, oh, yeah, I'll play your character on your profile because, that's something that you're at a certain level. You're like, I don't want to go back. I've done all this work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a different vibe when you have somebody with time and you're just like, whoa, this is what this feels like again. The days of future past, right? Like,
Yeah. Imagine if you could play 2 to 4 hours on a Tuesday.
you remember college? You remember like high school and having summers and doing what you want, putting in all those hours over the game.
Oh, so it was wild. It was like I said, ultimately, like I was so pleased for it. It almost like, reinvigorated me in a way. Like I'd like to get through. There's something about this game, like because I did pay for it. The amount that I just because
Blizzard wasn't listening to our show. They're like, we're not giving them a key.
I just mean like, I made that investment. I made that decision. Felt slightly embarrassed about it. I have good friends who play it. They up until like a couple months before this launch, they were still playing Diablo 3. So these guys are active.
Oh wow,
And
okay,
they loved
yeah.
it. They loved the seasons. They were all about it, right? So this will be a mainstay in them. And as my main gaming buddies, like what I'd like to try to commit to is I have never understood end game content. Never once in my life. I've never like World of Warcraft or Destiny or Destiny 2 that I got kind of into. Never in my life have I understood end game content. It was sort of a concept that just skipped over me because I missed kind of an internet generation of these type of games. So I'm entirely lost with it. But I look at this and I wonder, okay, I really do enjoy this game. I paid for it. I have good friends that play it. Like, what if I tried to spend some time and make this for a while, like my game that I would be doing end game content for? Do you have any concept of how like end game stuff works? Have you ever been into that realm or that world?
Diablo 3, I did dip into it. Again, a friend pushed through, and their older kid had like gone on and beat the game a bunch of times and loved the seasons, right?
Okay.
So I did dip in a little bit, but like I can't play. I would like to play a game like through and through and just kind of have it live as a constant thing. And maybe Witcher 3 is that one that I think of it. But like I get bored of it. I see what I come to see and I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then that's it. But end game content is kind of cool. And you need to like make these Diablo playdates to.
I think the problem is, as best I understand it, though, there's just a lot of grinding.
There is. You hit walls.
And as a gaming dad, like so it's like, all right, so my precious 1 hour of game time today will be just doing this one thing in this one forest for an entire hour. Which sounds like in the context of, if you have 4 hours, fine. Like, you're going to put in some grinding time and then you get to where you want to be. But when you have that precious tiny time, it's like, well, the only thing I'll do all week for my little bit of gaming time is going to be like just poking a little bit. I'm going to poke this tree 1,000 times a night to try to get this drop so I can have an emerald that will branch off into like Paragon status. Like, I don't know in the game. I don't know in game, obviously.
Yeah, I know it is a lot of grinding. It's like the promise of, those weapons that you can't get or the cosmetics that you can't get, and you're like, that's what I want, and I have to grind this thing to get to that thing. And it can be a lot. It's not for every new dad gamer. I don't know where you're gonna end up on the scale. It might be like, you get here and you're like, I'm not really feeling it, guys. Or you might start another profile and just do something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look. The other thing I've mostly learned with, especially with games and just other items that maybe I've purchased, is it's not become a prisoner of past poor decisions.
Yeah.
In so much as that, like, ultimately, like, I would like to give this an earnest try to see if it's something that I could enjoy. Could I get into in-game content, of which, like, I have good buddies that really seem to enjoy it. Yeah, that's appealing to me.
Yeah, they'll help you along too. Like they'll be the ones cheering you from the sidelines. You could do it, Trevor. So I think you have a good.
But for my first sentence, like, I won't be shackled by that decision making in so much that if I arrive there and I've given it a good effort and it's like, this is a second job and I don't like it, like I'm not having fun, I will drop it like a bad hat, because ultimately it's just like we have so many precious little personal hours. You can't waste it on a bad time.
No, just press pause, leave it for when your kids grow up, and you'll be like, all right, we're going back in when my profile is. You can do some grinding.
He's like, Diablo 5. Well, maybe this one. maybe this one will do it.
Maybe.
All right, everybody. We'll wrap it up there for the week. Thank you so much for listening. This has been New Dad Gaming. Do you have a forever game? Do you understand endgame content? Do you want to help me beat Diablo 4 for the first time or start a clan? Any of the above. Listen, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us at New Dad Gaming or newdadgaming.com. Another shout out to Gaming Dad Luke. Love the story, especially love the follow-up. I love that we're able to come to a conclusion on that, and that's the type of interactions we really adore on the show. We'd love to read your story, your question, your quandary on the show. Just reach out to us again at New Dad Gaming on Twitter or newdadgaming.com. If you like the podcast, we would really appreciate a subscription or a subscription, subscribing to it on any of the major.
Please, yeah.
Subscribe.
Yep.
subscribe to the scrib. On any
There's in-game content. Just wait.
Yeah, once we level up to episode 300, which is fast approaching.
Yeah.
But we'd really appreciate the subscription. You can find us on all the major podcasting network. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Caster, anywhere where you get your podcast. Just search for New Dad Gaming. As I mentioned, a subscription helps a whole lot. Even better is if you could leave a rating or a comment. That really helps boost the signal to other gaming dads. It really helps us get out there and build out this community. Everybody, thank you so much once again for listening. This has been New Dad Gaming. Until next time, my name is Trevor. I didn't forget them today because I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's 3:30. Do you know where your kids are?
Do you know where your dad is? All right. Just remember, just because you became a dad.
Does not mean it's game over.
All right. See you next week.
See you later.